Hey drivers, have you thought about becoming your own company? Have you thought you'd like to get your own authority and DOT number, but you just don't know how to go about doing it? Well, call J.J. Keller and Associates. They can help you get the proper registration and credentials that you need to operate legally. They protect drivers from penalties and out-of-service orders as a result of not having the proper authority. They save drivers time by filing their paperwork and ensuring everything is correct. Drivers, they also help you with unified carrier registration, US DOT and MC numbers, MCS 150 updates, year-around authority monitoring, and plenty more. Drivers, if you're looking to become your own company and you want your own authority number and DOT number today, call J.J. Keller and Associates at 888-601-2017. That's 888-601-2017 and tell them TalkCDL sent you. Thank you. All right, Ruthann, we are... I was going to say we're live, but we're really not live. We're actually in the recording studio here in Homosassa Springs, Florida. TalkCDL. We actually have an interesting guest on today. Mm-hmm. His name is, what is his name, Ruthann?
Rodney Timms.
Rodney Timms, and he is the actual founder of...
Western Flyer.
I think it's Western Flyer Express, or is it just Western Flyer?
I don't know. I always just called it Western Flyer, so I think Express is behind it.
Yeah, I believe he founded the company in 1996, but his bigger goal... And I believe his son is running the company now. I looked them up. I think they have like over 1,100 trucks, okay, which is a pretty healthy sized company. But his big goal is he's a big advocate for child abuse, mm-hmm. and he wants to come on and talk about it. And he had been emailing TalkCDL through LinkedIn several times, and we try to get everybody on, and it caught my eye what his passion is. He's a trucking company owner. I believe he said he drove over the road for a few years himself, which is always nice to have the owner, know where the drivers are coming from.
Right.
Right. And so I thought, you know what, let's bring him on and see how this show goes. So we're going to call him here in just about 2 or 3 minutes and see what he has to say.
He's also been in like Overdrive magazine and so forth too for his writing.
Do you have any of his books right there? Like, I know he said he wrote a few books, mm-hmm. And now here's my guess. He's written a few books, but more importantly, it's his passion. I don't know if he, has something that really drew him to this cause. And I want to kind of get into the heart of it. But I'd like to plug his books. I'm sure the guy doesn't need the money, if he's the owner of an 1,100 truck company, you know what I mean? So my guess is his heart is just wanting to get a message out there. And so I'd like to, get him on the show here and let's hear what he has to say.
Yeah, I do have some of his books, but it would be cool to have him say them too. Okay.
Do you have at least one or?
Contract Killer.
Contract Killer. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we'll have to get into that then. I have no idea. Is that something to do with child abuse or?
I don't know, but he has My Three Angels. I think that one was his first one, and Calling All Hearts.
Calling All Hearts. I when I was looking them up the other day, I noticed one of their trucks had a giant advertising on the side of the trailer, and it was all about, with child abuse. And, so if this is something that touches your heart, please tune in and listen to this week's podcast with Rodney Timms. We're going to go ahead and dial his number. We'll just let it fly. Ruthann, I'll let you take over here in a second. Let me just turn the thing down. We always dial somebody's number, and then the mixer picks up the guy going hello, and it blows our ears out. So I'm going to turn it down a little bit. And here we go. Hey drivers, are you looking for a new job or are you looking just to become a new lease driver? Well, NCI offers new Kenworth T680 double bunk condos with APU and refrigerator, all standard in all of their equipment. Come aboard and become a lease operator, or you can become a company driver. NCI offers regional positions, over-the-road positions, team positions, and also NCI will take on a few students if you've graduated from a trucking school. pick up the phone, check out NCI, and see if they have what you're looking for at 888-311-7076. That's 888-311-7076.
Hello.
Hi, Rodney.
Yes.
Hi, this is Ruth Ann with TalkCDL. How are you?
I'm fine, ma'am. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I have Troy here with us, and we're going to go ahead and...
Just do a quick mic check.
Yeah, just do a mic check. So just count to 10 for me.
Count to 10?
Yes, sir.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
That sounds like it's good right there. All
Perfect.
right, perfect. How you doing today, Rodney? This is Troy.
I'm good, Troy, and you?
I'm pretty good. We've been talking back and forth on LinkedIn. I've already, before you came on, we already kind of did a little introduction on you. You were actually the founder of Western Flyer Express. 1996 is when you started the company?
Yes, sir.
And I guess you have since let your son take over, and you're out doing other things right now. Is that what we're doing, or?
Exactly.
That sounds awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Rodney. You founded the company. Were you in trucking before you actually founded the company in 1996, or did you just kind of see a good business adventure and go for the trucking industry?
Well, my dad was a truck driver, and then he started his own trucking company. He had about 5 trucks. And I fell in love with them old trucks. And you hear drivers say all the time, once you get that in your blood, you can't get it out. Well, it's true.
It is. Once it gets in your blood, it kind of just stays slopping around in there, right?
Yeah, we have diesel in our veins here, Rodney. So while it's on my mind, did your dad actually get to see the dream of Western Flyer Express? Did he live long enough to see that?
No, sir.
Okay.
My dad was very abusive to me, and like I say, I fell in love with them old trucks. I didn't really care for him a whole lot, but he died when he just turned 54 years old when he died, so he wasn't around very long. I still have the last truck he drove. I had a model made of it and actually sold the truck because it was so junky by then. But we started our own company, me and my son, and started in 1990 and then went bankrupt in 1995 and started over in 1996. We started over, when we filed bankruptcy, we had 35 trucks. When we started over, we had 5 trucks. Truck values were so bad back then that the finance company told us on those 5, said, look, if you got any hope of making the payments, keep them for 90 days. We're getting so many repos back, we've got no room to put them. If you can't make it 90 days, call us and we'll come get them then. But we just don't have room for them. So we took those 5 trucks, and we couldn't buy any trailers because we didn't have credit. So a friend of ours believed in us and bought us trailers and leased to them. And I went to the bank and borrowed $17,000, and we restarted it under the name of Western Flyer Express in September the 16th, 1996. And today we have somewhere around 900 trucks and 2,200 trailers.
Well, that's awesome that you're able to come up out of there. But during this whole time, you had struggles of your own personally that you're getting through and created another outlet, correct?
Exactly. Like I said, my dad was abusive when I was in my early teens. I guess he decided I'd lived long enough, and he tried to beat me to death, and he came close, but I'm still here and he's not. But it was a bad deal. Left home right after that, and by the time I was 16, I'd met a girl. We got married. My son was born a few months later. And so I'm just 16 years older than my son. So we've kind of grown up together.
So talk to us. This is your passion, child abuse. And, you had written in about that. You've written a few books. Was it all on child abuse that you wrote the books?
All the books that I've written are about child abuse in general and my story of going through it and almost not making it. My first book is titled My 3 Angels. Second book is titled Contract Killer. By the time I was 17 years old, I really thought I wanted to kill somebody for what I'd been through. And you won't understand that if you've never been through it. Anybody that's been through it as bad as I went through it understands that completely. And people tell me all the time, said, don't talk about that. It scares people. And I said, well, it already scare them and scare them bad, because we're creating in our homes this very day what I refer to as homemade killers. You abuse a child long and hard enough, they want to kill, and they wind up doing that in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, Rodney, is there actual, say, signs that, our listeners can be watching for, maybe their neighbor's child may be being abused, maybe a family member, a cousin, an uncle, a brother, just something, a sign that, because I'm sure that the families try to hide that stuff.
Oh, yeah. It was very well hidden in my family. And in fact, my dad told me and my two sisters that if we told anybody, he'd kill us. And he had a way of convincing us that he would do it. So, and my sister suffered a little bit of abuse, but not near what I did. But the signs that people need to watch for is a child that's withdrawn from everybody, very quiet, and oftentimes wearing clothes out of season. Like I used to have to wear long sleeve shirts and pants during the summertime to hide all the bruises. And I couldn't ever go swimming because my parents were afraid somebody'd see the bruises. And my mom never stepped up and did anything about it. And the fact that the night that he tried to kill me was on the side of a highway in southwest Oklahoma. And my mother and two sisters had a front row seat and watched it happen. And my mother never did anything. In fact, we went on to Weatherford, Oklahoma, where he was working as a mechanic at the time for a trucking company. And he had another guy that was staying in a trailer house where he was staying, and we lived in Hollister, Oklahoma. So I heard him and my mother, because he beat me so bad, my eyes were swelled shut. I could see nothing. All I could taste was blood and was bleeding all over. But that being said, I heard him and my mother talk about, we can't take him in there because this guy will see him. So they covered me with a tarp and left me in the back of the pickup to sleep. The next day when we got home, me and my mother and sisters, my mother sent my sisters in the house to get a quilt, and they covered me and led me in by my arms so that neighbors wouldn't see me. Or if they saw me, they couldn't see what had happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
So did he ever get arrested at all, Rodney? Was he ever brought in? So
no,
never.
And here's something critical that people don't know. They didn't come up with child abuse laws or pass any of them until 1974. Now, in 1974, I was 21 years old, so they wouldn't have done me any good. But now, let me tell you what they did in 1876, almost 100 years before. They passed animal abuse laws. In fact, the very first people to be prosecuted for child abuse had to be prosecuted under the animal abuse laws.
Wow.
So they can the only way that they can charge someone with something is to put it underneath that form of a law until 1974.
Well, it sounds like some smart lawyer figured out a way to press charges on somebody that he really wanted to prosecute, and so they used the animal abuse law to prosecute maybe the first couple children, human beings that were being abused, until they came up with the actual. You said 1974 was the first year for that?
Right, was the first child abuse laws that were passed and put into effect.
So Rodney, man, it's horrible to hear that, but it's also an encouragement to see a grown man that went through what you went through, but did not allow it to put you out. You know what I'm saying? Like some kids...
You didn't continue it into your adulthood.
Right. I'm sure you didn't abuse your kids. I'm sure you didn't let it, and you may have had thoughts of suicide. I don't know where, like you said, if you didn't go through it, you don't know exactly how the person feels. And I got to tell you, I didn't have abusive parents, so I don't know how you're feeling. I have a lot of compassion for you, but tell us, at what point did you say to yourself, I'm not going to live as an abused guy. I'm going to go forward and become successful? Because obviously you got a great success story that came after all that stuff. Talk to us about that.
Well, the fact is, I almost didn't make it. I will say this: the girl that I married, her parents were the total opposite of my parents, and they were an example that I got to watch for a few years there. And they were such good people and so good to me and their daughter, which was my wife, that I kept thinking to myself, why can't I be like that? But my internal instincts was to push the other direction. Now, let me describe child abuse to you. When I was a kid, there were boys in the little town of Hollister would pin their dogs up and beat them day in and day out. Just beat them, beat them, beat them. They'd turn them out at night, and they would try to kill other dogs. They would attack the humans. I mean, they were all over people. And I said that one time, you can do the same thing to a human being. And my daughter spoke up and said, Dad, you're wrong. I said, well, honey, explain to me how I'm wrong. She said, humans have a choice. I said, honey, I'm so glad you brought that up. Let's talk about that choice. You know what's right, but because of what's happened to you, you have a push inside of you that you absolutely would not believe unless you've been through abuse of how bad it is to push you the opposite direction. Therefore, people need to understand that 80% of the murders in this country were committed by people that were abused, and that goes to 100% with serial killers. The fact remains that it's the leading cause of divorce, it's the leading cause of drug abuse, alcoholism, and companies lose about $585 billion every 5 years on people that have been through abuse because of they don't show up at work, they can't get along with people, they have tremendous health costs because people that have gone through that have a lot more health issues than a normal person. And it's so bad and gotten so out of control in this country and so many people ignoring it, it's hard to get anybody's attention and say, hey, this is a problem. So at ATTACA, which is All Truckers Together Against Child Abuse, we plan to put billboards across this country that have those statistics on it so we can wake up the American people to a serious problem. Now, it's been referred to as our nation's shame. I call it the cancer of our country because it's eating us up from within. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to a retired U.S. Marshal last night, and I said, here's the deal. All the sex trafficking, all that stuff starts with child abuse. That's the seed for all of this to start. Now, if you eat an apple, you don't eat the seeds. Why? They're made, and God made them that way because He don't want you eating the seeds so you can plant them and reproduce all the time. Mm-hmm. We're destroying the seeds in our country by destroying our children.
But that's correct. And like you said, it's when you involve into any form of sex trafficking or any type of abuse to a child, that it starts all in that. If you're going to molest a child or do anything, that is a form of child abuse. It just because it says it's a sexual abuse does not mean it's not an abuse, period. Because abuse can come in mental, physical, and emotional. You can damage someone in every form of that, and that's all a form of abuse because you're abusing your authority to that younger person or to an older person. You're abusing them.
I didn't go to counseling until I was 45 years old. And I thought, well, I got some things I really need to talk to somebody about that nobody's going to understand. So I went, and the lady told me two things. She said, I'm going to tell you a couple of things going to break your heart. Number one, I've been doing this for 40 years, and not one time have I got the abuser through my door. I always get their victims. And I said, well, I can't believe that. It's hard to believe. But she said, also, I told her, I said, as bad as I had it, I can't understand how children are sexually abused by adults. That does not make sense to me. I don't understand it. She said, you need to thank God you don't understand it, because if you understood it, you'd be just like them. I said, oh, thank God I don't understand it and never will. Mm-hmm. But then she told me, she said, look, I'm going to be real honest with you. There's the door. You have no reason to come back to me. You've dealt with your issues. You're making good progress. You don't need this. You have no idea what kind of victims I get in here and how messed up they are.
Yeah. I mean, it's a shame. But when you started ATTACA, when did you start that? What year did that?
What's the ATTACA stand for again?
All Truckers.
All Truckers Together Against Child Abuse.
I want to put that on our site. Mm-hmm. Do you have a Facebook page with that also?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, there's, and Ruth Ann, we can go back to your question in a second. So there's Truckers Final Mile. There's, what's the other one that we support, Ruth Ann?
TAP.
Truckers Against
Pedophiles. And
we have a couple of them that we're advocating.
Hunted and Confronted.
And so we can get ATTACA on there also and try to promote them forward for that. But you had a question about ATTACA? Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to know when he was able to funnel all of that extra energy into creating ATTACA.
Oh, so you're saying you want to know when he went from the abuse to getting help to turning it around and make it into something positive.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I started, my wife and I did about 3 years ago, and there's a sad story that goes along with that. My state senator at the time, I'd been talking to him about some other issues with trucking, and I was telling him what I wanted to do, and he said, I can help you, and he showed me a format where he helps people get elected and that kind of stuff, you know, how politicians are. And he said, if you give me $10,000, I'll start setting up the printing, I'll get the website going and all that. So I did, and a few months later, you know, we're just kind of rocking along, not making any progress. And he texted me on a Tuesday and said, I need to meet with you on Friday. I said, sure, 10 o'clock in my office. Well, that night on TV, I see him being arrested for being caught in a motel in Moore, Oklahoma with a 17-year-old boy. So the very next morning, I called my attorney. I said, you need to text this gentleman and tell him a meeting with me is now impossible. So he took my money, and he took a lot of my, you know, hope that I was really going to get this thing off and started like I wanted to, and kind of stymied me for the next few months. I was just at a loss as to why somebody would do that and try to use my organization as a cover for it. Just really broke my heart, to be honest with you.
That's
But we're up and running now. For the last year, we've been going at it pretty hard.
Yeah, this snakes. You know, I once I sat with he was the president of Schaefer Trucking, and he was with the Ackley companies. You know who they are. His name was Matt Stoll, and I sat in his office, and he said, Troy, you could take everybody in the trucking industry that's honest, and they'd all fit in one room. So yeah, it's hard to find people that don't have an agenda behind helping you, and hopefully that this is going to go forward and create a positive impact. I'm sure there's people out there listening right now that have gone through what you've gone through. Any advice to somebody, like you said, you were 45 till you actually went and realized, listen, I got a lot of stuff built up inside me that's just killing me. I need to go and get it out. I mean, any advice? Is that the same advice you have to any of your drivers or any of the drivers out there listening, or people that maybe have a big buildup inside them from the same thing?
Well, they need to get help, whether it be secular or go to a good church. I spent a lot of time in church and realized there's a lot of things in the Bible that tells us how to live. And if we follow them, all this other stuff tends to mean nothing. And that's kind of the path I've tried to follow. I got a joke yesterday. It's really not that funny, but it is somebody talking to somebody and saying, don't try me. And the other person says, well, I thought you were a Christian. And then you speak up and say, yeah, I am, but I'm from the south side of the kingdom. so that's kind of where I was for years. But, you know, now I think God's a big part of my life, because I know I can't make it without understanding that he was here for a reason, sent Jesus here. And that book is a book of life, and that, you know, everybody wants to blame God when something bad happens, but he gave us that book and told us to follow it and everything will be fine. And he told us there will be trials and tribulations, but be of good cheer, for he overcame the world. And nobody wants to do that anymore. They just want it handed to them, and it don't work that way. You have got to do something to get something.
Well, you know, I will add to what you're saying. What a lot of people don't understand, and you're right, if you would just follow what's in there, your life would be so much better. For example, the word grace, a lot of people don't understand the word grace. If you look it up, it means the divine inspiration on the heart and the reflection in life. And all that really means is, if you go to Titus, it says that the grace of God that bringeth salvation has appeared unto all men, teaching. And so what people don't understand is grace teaches. And if you look at all those Gospels, he taught us how to live peaceful, how to live with our neighbors, and how to not offend others and to stick up for others. And I'm telling you, if you just follow those Gospels, you can't go wrong.
You're absolutely correct. And that's what I try to do. But, you know, we are going to make mistakes. And he said, I'll forgive you. That's why he sent Jesus, to give us those second chances, because he knew we'd make mistakes. He knew what this world would do to us. And if we could get the whole world, Reba McEntire and Lauren Daigle have a song out together. It's a remake of Reba's original song, Give This World Back to God, is the most powerful song in the world as far as I'm concerned, because that's what needs to happen.
So, and 100%, we don't talk a lot about the Lord on this show because a lot of people don't bring it up, but I'm glad you did bring that up. It's a great inspiration to us, and we feel great about, maybe pushing ATTACA for you even more now. I got a couple more questions though, going back if we can.
Okay.
As far as your grandfather, I just want to see, was this a pattern back through your family that you broke, or was your grandfather not abusive to your dad? Can you talk about that at all, or do you know anything about it?
My dad's younger brother told me one time, and this discussion didn't last very long. He said, in all fairness to your dad, he was abused. And I said, listen, I know his story of abuse. It was by his mother. And I promise you, she didn't abuse him near what he abused me. But I don't ever want to hear that excuse again, because as bad as he abused me, I didn't abuse my children. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to say, well, I'm abused, I have a right to abuse my children. I won't do that. I won't stand for that. And then I've had people say this, well, was he drunk when he did it? Well, yeah, the night he tried to kill me, he was drunk. But I promise you, he beat me more when he was sober than he did when he was drunk. So, it's like they want to excuse that person for doing what they did. And there's no excuse for that. Absolutely. And I say this all the time, abuse, there's no excuse.
No, you're absolutely right. And a lot of times in court, they want to stand up and go, well, the guy was really treated wrong in his whole life. His mom was a prostitute, da-da-da-da-da. But, let him off for these 5 murders. And a lot of times they're lenient over that when they really should realize one thing. There's an accountability age for every human being. When we get old enough, we know if we're right or wrong. And if we continue in wrong, then we honestly need to be facing the consequences for that.
Right.
Like your daughter said,
most people that have been abused can't get past that. I mean, the majority of people never get past it. They struggle with it all the time, and it's not that simple to get past. And I tell people all the time, if I had a pill to cure it, I'd be a trillionaire, because there's so many people been abused in this country, in this world, that they would be buying it as fast as you could produce it. But it's not there. It takes some effort on your part. And people just give up before they get to that.
You know what? Like your daughter said, there's a choice. That's what you have, and a lot of them don't. They drown themselves in what happened to them and decide not to make the choice to be better.
And you got to understand now, the abused people, it's a choice, but it's not that simple. That push inside of them and the hurt from all of that is so strong that it keeps you from making the right choice. That's why most people don't make it. But I tell people all the time, listen, it's not simple, but I promise you, if I made it, anybody can make it through it, because of what I went through. I went through horrific physical abuse. It was crazy. Now, my dad's older brother sexually molested all 3 of his daughters, and I just found out from the oldest one the other day when I was visiting with her that my grandpa on my dad's side tried to abuse her, and one of his younger brother tried that. So I guess it's something that was bred into them, or they had it, or it was there. I don't know. I can't explain it. It's like pedophilia. I got no answers for that. It doesn't make sense to me, but it's getting rampantly turned loose in this country, and I'm beginning to understand why it's driving people crazy just dealing with it.
So speaking of running rampantly, do you have? I'm going to have Ruth Ann look it up here in a second if you don't have it. But do you have any statistics, like 1 out of 5 children are abused, 1 out of 4, 1 out of 2? I mean, do you know any of those numbers or not?
I don't know them off the top of my head, but I believe they're on my website. Of course, I've been going through some changes on that, trying to get people. I had a company doing my website that was posting stuff without me approving it first, and they put some stuff on there that we can't do, and some other people started reposting it, and I'm like, oh, gee, where'd that come from? Then I found out it's on my website. So I'm kind of going through some changes, but some of that should be there. Now, let me tell you somewhere else to go. Child Help out of Phoenix, Arizona, Scottsdale area out there. I spent a lot of time working with them, and you can go, I believe it's childhelp.org, and get all those statistics if they're not on my website. And I'm going to be using Child Help's 800 number. In fact, their 800 number, which is answered 24/7, is on the bottom of the page of my first two books.
I was actually looking at those numbers and was going to say them, but since you mentioned them, I can go ahead and put it out there right now. The National Child Abuse Hotline is 800-4A-CHILD. So it's really easy to remember, 800-4A-CHILD. That's the National Child Abuse Hotline. And with the Child Help, their number is 480-922-8212.
I just seen it.
Let me give you just a little bit of history about them. It started by two ladies that were actresses. And Ronald Reagan, they had done some work helping some Korean children that were part American get adopted. Ronald Reagan approached them about handling or dealing with child abuse in this country, and they had no idea that child abuse was a problem in the United States. It just floored them to find that out. And they've done great work. They've been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize twice. They've had all kinds of national recognition by presidents, but they've done a wonderful job. And they're still alive, both of them. They're in their late 80s, I believe. And they have hearts like of gold, and they've spent their whole lives after I believe it was 1980 when he approached them. For the last 40 years, that's all they've done is try to help kids.
So I just pulled up some stats. Just in 2018, roughly 700,000 children were abused in the United States alone, and just under 700,000 were all unique abuses. It says here 1 out of 7 children are abused in the United States. That's some crazy numbers. It says here's the most common abuse in America is neglect. So neglect is the most common form of child abuse, followed by physical abuse, then sexual abuse, then psychological abuse. Like you were saying, Ruth Ann, putting them down. You're no good. Right. You can't. You're not going to. All that. It's interesting to see what is really going on under our noses. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. It's something that hasn't even crossed my mind in years, child abuse, when you think about it. And these are things that are just going on around us without people even noticing. Talk to us real quick, Rodney. You got any kids out there that are saying, that's me? How do I get help without trying to turn my parents in? Because it just said that I think it was 76% or 90%. Let me just see. There was a number. It said that 76% of all child abuse was done by their own parents. So that means there's 24%, I guess, that are like uncles and maybe just people that come in contact with your children. How does a kid turn their parents in without, getting in trouble with their parents to where, okay, they come and get, what's the word, Ruth Ann? Investigated. And then the parents end up convincing the child abuse people, oh, no, nothing's going on here. And now that child's really in a lot of trouble. I'm sure that some of them were even afraid to try to turn their parents in.
Well, like me and my sisters, we were scared to death to tell anybody about it. I finally got up the nerve to tell the preacher in the town, and he never did. I expected it to stop after that he would do something. He did nothing. The fact remains is there's several avenues they've got today we didn't have back then, because they've passed laws now where teachers are responsible to make sure if that child's being abused and they suspect it, to call authorities, as well as your churches are the same way. All of that's out there. But if the parents get investigated because the kid says something, they're going to know immediately that that's how it happened. So I don't know any way you can get around it without them actually knowing that the kid said something to somebody. Even if they don't know it for a fact, they'll accuse that child and abuse them accordingly. The fact remains, if it's bad, hopefully that child will be taken out of that home. I tell people all the time, to talk about how bad the foster system is. I said, boy, I'd sure like to have tried it. It had to be better than what I went through. But
Right.
then again, I don't know that. I've heard horror stories about that. I could tell you stories. I recently talked to a retired U.S. Marshal here in Oklahoma. I'm fixing to go talk to a former Texas Ranger in Texas about incidents that happened that I can share without mentioning names or mention them in it anywhere, but give people examples of how bad it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's horrific. The gentleman here in Oklahoma was the very first U.S. Marshal in the United States to be assigned to this child sex trafficking and all that stuff that's going on, and tied to abuse and all that. He was the very first one. He's retired now, but I spent a couple hours on the phone with him last night, and he told me some stories, and I didn't sleep more than an hour last night, and I've been sick in my stomach ever since he told me. That would blow your mind, and I can't tell you and won't tell it publicly. It's just so disgusting that it would ruin you. You know what I'm saying? If you cared anything at all about people and children, this story would ruin you. So I'm not going to tell it. And I told him, he said, you can tell the story, just don't mention where it was and all that. And I said, I'm not even going to tell that story. I don't see how I could. It'd make people sick. So he said, and I asked him, I said, have you ever thought about writing a book about these stories? He said, ever since I've been retired, I'm trying to figure out how to get it out of my mind, because it's just haunting him, but all the stuff he's seen and what's going on in this world, and knowing that it's getting worse. And he's a good, godly Christian man, but he said, I'm still struggling with trying to get it out of my mind.
Do you think that when you wrote your books that helped you with purging some of the stuff that in your mind?
Well, I tell people all the time, that's the best thing I ever did. I write constantly. I'm a poet. I wrote my first poem in the first grade, and I could recite that to this day.
I want to hear it.
Huh?
I want to hear it.
Okay. The robins are robbing the nest. Call the cops and don't forget the rest. The cops are doing their best, but the robins are still robbing the nest.
That actually is really inventive for a first grader.
I thought it was, and then I didn't write for probably 25 years after that, because all the turmoil and everything I went through, I could not even put it down on paper. I was 35 years old before I could tell my wife what I actually went through. And that's pretty sad, you know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
But I've probably written somewhere around 4,000 poems, and I got a divorce, and most of those went in a bonfire somewhere. But the one book that's published by Trinity Broadcast Network is titled Calling All Hearts. It's all poetry, and it's about how an abused person feels, and then the only way through it is through Jesus Christ. And that's what I believe.
And all your books, I believe, when I was looking at them, are all on Amazon for purchase?
Yes, as well as our website. You can get them on our website.
Okay. And that's ATTACA.org.
Yes.
So, Rodney, you also drove a tractor trailer. I mean, you own Western Flyer. You wrote books. You've managed and did I'm sure you ran safety, dispatch, you name it, you did it. So you drove over the road for a few years. I think you had told us that in LinkedIn. Did that help you being out there on the road, or did that even drive you more crazy? Because I was over the road myself, and when you're out there, you got nothing to do but think.
I'm telling you, I tell people this story. I hauled a lot of grain. I hauled a lot of flatbed stuff, but I hauled a lot of baled cotton out of Oklahoma into the ports of Houston, Galveston area down there. And I was trying my best to make enough money for me and my family to live. And back then, a logbook wasn't really even talked about, much less you had to fill one out. And that was late 70s, early 80s. But I was between Huntsville and Houston, Texas one time, and I had on a nylon shirt and had it about halfway unbuttoned, and I smoked back then. I was probably, I'm trying to think, 25, 26 years old back then. I don't remember exactly. But anyway, I fell asleep, and the cigarette fell out of my mouth, went down on my chest into that nylon shirt. If you've ever seen nylon try to burn, it just mats up. Mm-hmm. And it matted up and burnt me, and it woke me up, and I was in the ditch right south of Huntsville there on Interstate 45 with a load of cotton. Well, cotton, you only chain it across the front end angle and across the back end angle, and then you tarp it. So it really comes off real easy. And I was down in the bar ditch with a load of it. And I managed to get that truck back up on the shoulder of the road. To this day, I don't know how. And I stopped it and didn't lose anything, one bale of cotton. But I remember going around and sitting by the right front tire. And I sat down there and I went to light a cigarette and I dropped 4 or 5 of them because I was shaking so bad from having to pull that thing up out of the ditch and waking up and finding myself there. And I told myself then, I've got to find another way to make a living because I'm running, 3,000 miles a week nonstop. And so I decided then I'd find something different, and the rest is history.
Wow. Well, you've had an amazing life. I must say that.
Yeah. No,
but
it wasn't boring at all.
No, but like you said, the Lord has blessed you, and he also, there was a reason why you had to go through your trials and tribulations in the beginning of your life, so that you can bring that awareness now as a grown man. And not only that, but have your children to be able to heal you, but also spread the word of what's going on in today's society, because it's gotten, in my opinion, it's gotten worse because, back when you had gone through your suffering, it was hidden. Now,
right,
it's still out there, and it's ginormous out there because parents don't have that same, you don't have 2 parents in the household half the time. You're neglecting your kids more. And a lot of times these kids are just, they're just, I don't know how to say, but mean. I mean, they go into schools and just shoot up all, and that, like you said, stems from a form of abuse that they've gone through, but they'll go into that school and they'll just murder all their classmates. And we have that going on now. We're back in the 70s and 80s. You didn't see that near as much. There was different ways that these kids had these outlets, and to me it's progressing, and it's getting more serious and more serious and more serious with these abuse situations, because not only are these kids being more vocal on being violent, but you also have, to me, some of them, like with the child trafficking. I don't think you didn't know of it more back in the early 70s and the 80s. You didn't hear of it as much. Now you're hearing it. It's happening, and it's so large of a situation that people still aren't even able to get a handle on how bad it is.
No, and then there's information out there that talks about how bad it is, and they're not even trying to cover it up anymore because they don't think the American public will believe it, and most of them won't. You don't hear about it in the mainstream media. They don't want to talk about it because like I say, it's considered our nation's shame, and it's bad, but it's getting worse. I heard, and this was on the news in one of those stations, I don't remember what, said that child abuse since the pandemic has increased 78%. That's ginormous.
I can understand that. They're all being, their school was their outlet. They're away from it.
Actually, he's right. I heard that statistic the other day, along with divorce and other things, because people are cooped up together, having to try to put up with each other. It's a horrible thing to even think about.
Right, exactly.
Well, there's more starving children because what's happening is when they went to school, they were at least getting fed.
Yeah,
and that's a problem everywhere. I mean, we went hungry as kids, and I hate to see kids go hungry. I've helped the regional food bank here in Oklahoma. And this is something me and my wife do all the time. We believe that you should help people, and people that are struggling and their houses burning, all that. We're always there to lend a helping hand because we know that they need help, and that's part of our responsibility, I believe, as individuals in this country, is to help each other. Because if we can't help each other, what good are we?
Well, Jesus said, when you've done this to the least of my brethren, you've done this to me.
Building your treasures.
Absolutely. So, got a question for you. It's just, I have it written down here. You have 1,100. Actually, I'd read on SafeStat 1,100 trucks. You say it's more like under 1,000 here and there. But the question I have for you is, have you ever had a case of child abuse in a truck? Have you had to literally get somebody out of your truck because you got reports of, because I'm wondering if, some truck drivers, I would hate to think truck drivers are abusive, but you never know with being cooped up in that truck.
God has been on my side through this whole thing, because I've never seen that happen with a truck driver. I've never seen it happen in public. I've heard people tell stories about it all the time, but and God knows this, I believe that's why he kept me from it. If I saw somebody beating up their kid in a parking lot, I'd probably wind up beating them up.
I was thinking that same thing. If you would have came across someone that you've seen, it would probably be
let all the steam out on them.
Yeah, a little violent. Yeah.
So how can we do our part? In trucking general. I mean, how can we make a difference in trucking? Is there anything beyond ATTACA and us putting some of your stuff up on our page? We do have a few followers on our Facebook page.
Well, we need to try to help everybody out there, that's trying to help children. But with ATTACA.org, we're going to put billboards across this country. They're going to tell people how bad it is, because the mainstream media is not going to report it. In fact, there are 6 million cases reported every year. Only about half of those ever lead to an investigation. And then you come up with your number where actual cases, a lot of them are pled out and all of that. You never hear about them, and they don't go into the right statistic category. So it's worse than the statistics even allow. But they claim out of those 6 million, there's that many or more that never get reported, because in our case, we were afraid we were going to die if we said anything to anybody. So fear keeps that. And I figured up one time, probably half of the population of this country has dealt with some type of abuse in one way or another.
Oh, I can attest to that. Yes.
So I'm looking here at Rodney Timms, we have on the show here. Just thought I'd mention it towards the end here. We have his website open, ATTACA, ATTACA.org. And Ruth Ann just pulled this up and showed it to me. It's a beautiful website. And it looks like he's got
admiring the Pete that's on it.
He's got a big old Peterbilt. Looks like the face of a 377. I'm not sure if that's
it's a 389.
It is a 389. Okay.
Right.
So, and everybody's
truck number one, in case you're interested.
Truck number one. I see that on there. But the side of the truck says ATTACA. It's got everything on here. Prevent child abuse. It's got the website, and then if you look below it, okay. It shows the membership that we can help out by sponsoring. $25 for an annual membership, $500 for a lifetime membership, and I'm sure it all goes towards the child abuse.
And they're trying to get the billboards to post up, so that money helps going towards all that.
So all you truck drivers out there, trucking companies, all you people that are listening in here, let's join the fight with Rodney Timms and see if we can get a few pledges and get more members on this ATTACA. What is it, Ruth Ann? All truckers
together.
All truckers together against child abuse.
Against child abuse.
And another thing also, and I'm sure it would be the same thing with this, if you are a company and you want to do the donation of the lifetime membership, those types of donations generally are a tax write-off. So not only
they are, because we are a 501c3, so they can legitimately deduct it off their taxes. And we send them a real nice challenge coin and a decal that's got ATTACA on it. So it's quite incredible.
And not only that, but these drivers, especially owner-operators, you become even if you can only do the annual membership, that would be a write-off too for you for your taxes. So that's
exactly.
It's something that's wonderful. You're going to help promote not only the child abuse hotline, and you're also being a member of trying to keep kids safe, but you also can help put the billboards up to give that information out there.
Look, guys, bottom line, open up your hearts and your pocketbooks. At $25 or $500, you trucking companies out there, $500, you guys eat lunch with something like that. My gosh, go on a diet for a day and donate to this cause. I'm telling you, this is a great cause, and TalkCDL is always happy to get involved with all these foundations that are out there helping in every which way we can in a positive impact, Ruth Ann.
I agree. We do.
Rodney, do you have any last advice or anything for truck drivers or children or anything? Do you have any closing words that you'd like to really get out there? And please do us a favor, give us the names of your books. And Ruth Ann, you already gave the phone number for the Child Abuse Center, and we'll try to put that all in the show notes. Go ahead, Rodney.
Well, the advice I give to truck drivers is to join to help us, get the funds necessary to make all of this happen. And also, if they're struggling with anything, they need to find somebody to talk with, share that with, or even write it down. Here's kind of what I started leaning toward writing. Is someone told me I need to write my dad a letter, and even though he's dead, just write the letter, and it empties that kind of out of you, and it's a start of how you can get it out of you. So take some time. If you're having to sit and wait somewhere, which I've always said trucking's the biggest game of hurry up and wait I've ever seen, is take that time to write stuff down, and it will start to ease the pain. So that being said, and if you notice kids that are going through what you went through, notify the authorities. Now, the books are Calling All Hearts, Contract Killer, and My Three Angels, and I have a new one coming out called No Reason to Believe.
Well, Rodney, I tell you, Ruth Ann reads a book almost every night. I've never seen anybody in my life read like her and I are together 26 years, and I swear to you, I don't remember a night that Ruth Ann was not reading herself to sleep. So I'm sure she'll be reading every one of your books.
I already thought of it.
Cool. Yeah. I hope she does, because she'll get some serious insight.
Oh, I'm definitely going to be ordering them.
Yeah, and again, truck drivers, $25 for an annual membership fee. Really not a whole lot of money to join. A great cause. I mean, a great cause, honestly. And I got to tell you something, truck drivers, you know what? We brag about the fist pump, right? When one of those little kids are pumping their fist, we want to blow that air horn. So, you want to even get a little deeper and help one that might be in trouble. Chip in, and then when you see one of those billboards, guess what? You'll know that you had a part in that billboard that you're running across for ATTACA.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're a part of it. Not
only does Rodney have ATTACA as a regular website, which is ATTACA.org, you can also follow him on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And make sure TalkCDL follows him. So, perfect. Well, Rodney, we're about to wrap this show up. We've got you on here coming up on an hour here. We really, truly appreciate it. And you're always invited back. If you've got a message you want to get out there, anything you want to talk about, you're obviously been in trucking for a long time, and truly appreciate. Ruth Ann's got a big smile on her face. What do you got a big smile about?
Well, I clicked shop on his website.
Yeah.
And the first thing that comes up is this big belt buckle.
Oh yeah.
And all I kept thinking of is the drivers that are out there in the Midwest that still wear the big belt buckles. So I'm like, that is cool. It's a nice belt buckle.
That's kind of why I have those. But on our website, there's a truck driving scene on there with that big black Pete. And that's me actually driving the truck.
Really? Can you see him?
Yep.
Yeah. See, when my grandfather died, which was really because he was my mentor and taught me like so much about trucking, how to work on them. I mean, that was back in the cab over days. I'm sure you remember all that. And,
oh yeah.
And when he died, he had a drawer full of belt buckles. And as a young man, the belt buckle thing didn't mean a whole lot to me back then. But now that I'm up in age myself, guess what? I have such regret that I didn't ask my grandmother for those belt buckles, because that was like 30 years ago, and to this day, I wish I had some of them old belt buckles that he had. Man, that's really touching when I think about it. Thanks for bringing that up.
I understand that completely.
Well, they've got some really, they got dog tags, they've got the coins, they got license plates, they got hats, shirts. Some of these T-shirts, the hoodie's pretty cool too.
Yeah.
So, they have...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just the mugs. They have lots of interesting items here.
All trucking stuff.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
And we have a new T-Bone was my dog as a kid, and there's a whole story behind that. But we have T-Bone dog dolls, plushies, that kids and everybody we've given them to a lot of kids, but everybody that's got one usually winds up sleeping with them because they snuggle with them.
Yeah.
Rodney, if Louisville's going on this March, we're planning on being there. Are you gonna? You should set up a little booth for ATTACA.
Well, here's the deal. Are you familiar with Taylor Barker?
No.
Okay. Taylor Barker is owner-operator for Hennef Transportation, and they have a big booth there. And Taylor Barker is our national spokesperson, and he has told us that Hennef will let us set up a booth inside of Hennef's booth at the Louisville show.
Well, that's
nice.
Which will save us a lot of money because those booths are pretty expensive.
Right.
Yeah, we have media passes, so we're going to be walking around interviewing people, filming it.
So we'll definitely have to, when it starts getting closer, make a hookup with your gentleman there, your spokesperson,
and him.
Yeah, if you're going to be able to.
I plan on being in Louisville. Me and my wife both.
Good. We can all sit down and have a coffee together and sit and talk and meet.
Sure, I'd love to.
Absolutely.
Love to.
Right. Well, we're going to wrap this thing up. Like I said, any last minute advice beyond what we've already talked about, Rodney?
No, just everybody needs to join because we're going to raise money through memberships and not try to have large corporate sponsors who want us to tell us how to run our charity. We want to run it for kids and for trucking people. And you don't even have to be a trucker to join. Anybody can join it.
Well, the one thing that we've found through TalkCDL, a lot of people that are not truckers, they're like truckers' wives and even children of truckers. They're very caring and very much participate in messaging us and sending us stuff also. So, yeah, you're right. I don't think it'll just be the actual truck drivers joining. I believe it'll be everybody. So, all right, Ruth Ann, let's wrap this thing up.
Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us, Rodney, and you have yourself a blessed day.
We're going to go ahead and cut you. Thank you so much, Rodney. Rodney Timms.
God bless you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was Rodney Timms from Western Flyer Express, the actual founder. I mean, that was so cool, Ruth Ann. That was so cool. I love when people contact us, but beyond trucking, you know what I mean? He wants to bring in some issues that as truck drivers we could all be watching for, we might be going through, just because, look, we're truckers and we talk trucking, but there's issues in truckers' lives. And I'm sure there's some abused truckers. Well, there's Rodney Timms. He was an abused trucker as a child. I'm sure there's people right now, and we're going to get emails, and if you've got something you want to get off your chest, you can write to Ruth Ann at TalkCDL.com. And by the way, I should tell you, Ruth Ann does not have an E at the end. So if some people try to write it and put the E on there, she's never going to see the email. I never thought of that, Ruth Ann.
No, I know I've had that issue because I had one person send it to me and they didn't realize it.
Right. So it's RUTHANN at TalkCDL.com, or you can write to me, Troy, at TalkCDL.com. And if you want to come on the show, if you want to send us a video, if you want to, and we're still interviewing people that to join the show. Remember, we're going to be adding somebody to the show this year, hopefully this year yet, that would call in. We want a truck driver, an active driver that's out on the road that will be able to call in and just give us a report and let us weekly 5 minutes of maybe some cool stuff they've seen. And by all means, keep the emails coming. Ruth Ann, do we have anything else that we want to add to this show?
Stay safe out there.
Do you have a word of the day?
I do.
You do? Mm-hmm. What's the word of the day? And from Word Genius.
Word Genius.
We keep plugging Word Genius because I don't want Word Genius to go, hey, we never gave you permission to give our name out there. But honestly, I'm hoping that people are actually probably, what is it, an app, Word Genius?
Yeah, well, what it was, I don't even know for sure how I even got it, but somehow I went to somewhere or got something and you sign up for it.
And they send you a word every day.
In my email, I get a word every day. And then there would be times where I'll get the synonyms and antonyms of words, or
But more importantly, you get like some new word to learn that we've never, because 99% of every word that you've come up with so far, I actually have never heard of. I still think of the word semiocophobia, which I don't think you got that off.
I didn't get that from there, no.
That's and just in case, we haven't said that word in a long time. Semiocophobia is the fear that people have of actually passing a tractor trailer on a highway or an interstate.
Right.
So, and it's called semiocophobia, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, and TalkCDL, we have pushed that word a lot. So anyways, what do we got, Ruth Ann? Let me turn up your mic here so that we can, go ahead.
Confabulate.
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 C-O-N?
C-O-N-F-A-B-U-L-A-T-E. Confabulate.
Confabulate.
Yes.
So what does confabulate mean? Can we use it in trucking?
Yeah, you can use it in every day.
Go ahead. What is it?
Engage in conversation.
Oh my gosh. On the CB, we confabulate. That is so cool. Confabulate.
Engage in conversation, talk, or in psychiatry, it's to fabricate imaginary experiences as compensation for loss of memory.
So you make something up if you can't remember it. Ruth Ann, you're good at confabulating. If you don't remember it, you still can tell us about it.
He's such a jerk.
But on the CB, next time you guys confabulate, keep it clean, guys. Keep your confabulating clean. Okay, out there on the CB. Not all you guys have a clean mouth on the CB. I just want to point that out. 99% of you do. There's always that one clown that wants to run his mouth and start fights with everybody when he's confabulating. Ruth Ann, do we have anything else?
Aside from me beating you? No,
All right.
We're good.
Let's go.
Peace.
Peace. Praise the Lord.